Good evening. Introduction to Epics, Puranas and Bhagwadgita. Objectives. The unit attempts to give a general outlook of the popular scriptures of Indian tradition, namely the Epics, Puranas and the Gita. The popularity of them is due to narrative style with illustrations, mythological stories and dialogical form. They do contain high philosophical notions but give in a popular language emotional attachment and devotion towards personal deities and God are the general outcome of this sort of literature. Introduction. In Sanskrit tradition, scriptures are divided into two types: revealed text, Shruti, what is heard, or remembered type, Smriti, what is remembered. The four Vedas and 108 Upanishads come under Shruti category, and Bhagavad Gita. The four Vedas and 108 Upanishads come under the Shruti category, and Bhagavad Gita. Eight Puranas, Shastras, Tantras, Agamas, and many others come under Smriti category. Smriti literally means recollection or memory. It is a secondary authority. It derives its authority from Shruti. Its objective is to expand and exemplify the principles of Shruti and the Vedas. The Smriti consists of Gita, Brahmasutra, Itihas. Smriti consists of Gita, Brahmasutra, Itihas, epics, Puranas, chronicles and legend, Shastras, codes of law, Agamas and Tantras, manuals of worship. The distinction between Shruti and Smriti is important for two following reasons. Number one, in case of conflicting views, Shruti's views will hold good. Number second, without requiring any change in the Shruti, the Smritis preserve the authority, admitting changes in it. Agamas are that which has been handed down as a tradition. These are the scriptures dealing with the worship of a particular aspect of God. They prescribe detailed courses of discipline for the worshipper. Each agama consists of four sections. They are philosophy, mental discipline, rules for the construction of temples and images, religious practices. The agamas are divided into three according to the deity that is worshipped. The Vaishnava agamas, also called the Pancharatra, and Vaikhanas agamas for Vishnu. The Shaiva agamas for Shiva, and Shakta agamas tantras for Shakti. Each glorify its particular deity. Shastras, these are codified laws regulating the society from time to time. The important laws givers are Manu, Yagyavalk and Parasar. Their code of law are known as Shastras. Dharma Shastra constitute another very important source of Indian ethics and philosophy, in which detailed rules of conduct and practical moral instructions are given. Manu Smriti, according to Manu, by following dharma, one attains perfection. Manu prescribed duties for all the four stages of life and four different categories of persons in the society. This book of Manu comprises the laws of Manu, which has become Aryan laws. Manu is considered to be the great lawgiver in Vedic period. The code of conduct has three divisions: ritual, discharge of social responsibility, and atonement for sins. They contain prescription and proscription. They are like constitution and penal code. They emphasizes two aspects of life: dharmic and social. The role of ritual is restricted to individual life, household work to be precise. These codes have some rigidity imposed in their interpretation and implementation. Fixation of duties and emphasis upon duties resemble to great extent the directive principles enshrined in the Constitution. While fourfold division of society is one type, fourfold division of individual life is another. Smriti is very clear about not only four classes but also four stages: Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Banprastha and Sannyasa. In the life of an individual, there is no scope for switching from one position to another in a random manner. This will help us to infer the kind of political system which Smriti supported. Surely Smriti did not support democratic system, though during Vedic age the democratic system flourished. Itihasa is epics. The two well-known and popular epics from Sanskrit tradition are the Ramayana and by Valmiki and the Mahabharata by Vyasa. Though the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are the two epics which have influenced literature for several centuries in all parts of India, the Ramayana accepts the principle of Sanatan Dharma and duties of ruler in particular. The aim of the epic is to drive home to all the laws of the Smritis and the principles of the Shrutis by means of the exploits of their great national heroes, Rama and Krishna. The Ramayana is the account of the deeds of a divinely great hero who set an example for the entire human race. It deals with ideal conditions of humanness, a sense of brotherhood, obedience to moral law, firmness of character, honesty, sacrifice, and unbound goodness. Mahabharata has a more profound theme which involves history, mythology, ethics, and metaphysics. It is the history of Bharadas, a royal family of North Indian which divided into two parties, Pandavas and Kauravas, and so the war break out between them. It is an encyclopedia of Hindu Dharma. The epics are essentially different from the early Vedic literatures. They arose not among the priestly classes but among traditional parts called sutas. These also served as charioteers who witnessed the actual battle scenes and describe them at first hand in their ballads. They are marital poetry, concerned not with the praise of deities but of kings and nobles, not connected with the details of sacrifices but with events like wars, and imbued not with higher philosophical motives but with the practical purpose of gaining some reward from the audience before whom they were recited. We do not have them in their original and with their original and untempered form. They are added to by different hands at different periods. To the nucleus, many pieces of the ancient Bradic poetry containing legend connected or unconnected with the life of the epic heroes, of sacred poetry dealing with numerous myths and legends of Brahminical origin, and large sections devoted to philosophy and ethics, cosmologies and genealogies in the fashion of Puranas, legends, fable, and parable. These auditions indicate the great popularity which this epic has enjoyed at all times. The jealous spirit of compliance to bring together all that could be collected in it. The three-dimensional view of Mahabharata on mundane plane, the story deals with the realistic account of a fierce war or annihilation, with its interest centered on the epic characters. The meaning on the ethical plan views the war as a conflict between the principle of dharma and adharma, between good and evil, between justice and injustice, in which the contending parties are regarded as incarnations of devatas and asuras, and the war ends in the victory of dharmas. On the ethico-psychological plane, the epic aims at impressing upon the reader the paramount of moral values. On the transcendental plane, which takes us beyond dharma and adharma, the war is fought not only in the Kurukshetra but also in our own minds. Their perpetual battle between the higher self and the lower self of man for establishing mastery over the body is symbolized by the fight between the cousins for sovereignty. Here we are face to face with the deep mysteries of life. The self under the guidance of the of the super self emerges successful in this conflict after he has destroyed with that sort of knowledge ignorance embodied in his illegitimate desires and passions, symbolized by by his relatives, teachers, elders, and friends ranged on the other side. Individual self jivatman is Jivatman is Arjuna, absolute self is Krishna. Dhritarashtra is the symbol of the vacillating egocentric self, while his son symbolizes in their aggregate the brood of egocentric desires and passions. Vidura stands for Buddhi, the one pointed reason, and Bhishma is tradition, Vidur stands for Buddhi, the one-pointed reason, and Bhisma is tradition, the time-bound element in human life and society. Though symbolism, though symbolism is not applied to all characters, the metaphysical interpretation leads us to the deeper meaning of the epic. The epic poets are using every means in their power to expound, illustrate, and popularize what the philosophy of the self, a lofty philosophy of ethical autonomy, with emphasis on the application of these principles to the problems of daily life. It will serve our purpose. It will if we concentrate on philosophical components of the Mahabharata. We can trace two philosophical issues in this work. One is expounded in the Bhagavad Gita, rather in a very unsatisfactory manner, because it is mainly a work in theistic tradition. Second one is morality and polity, expounded by two prominent characters, Vidur and Bhishma. But these philosophical issues in this work suffer from a serious drawback from philosophical point of view. Nowhere in this work we do find discussion or criticism, which is the hallmark of philosophy. More than anything else, what we find is only a sermon. Ethical insights of ethics. From the point of view of ethics, it is desirable to regard some character as personification of virtue. Vidur and Bhishma belong to this category. In contrast to these characters in the Mahabharata, we have other characters which are regarded as personification of evil. Why should any epic portray evil characters? This is one question. Are they, in a broader perspective, really evil forces? That is another question. The second question is much deeper philosophically and cannot be answered easily. First one is slightly easier to handle. An epic must be vast. Hence, it ought to include all facts of world and all aspects of life. So, evil characters ought to find place in any epic worth the name. Vidura's exposition of moral principles begins with a clear distinction between Shreyas, desirables, and Prayas, pleasing. He compares Shreyas with medicine, which is not palatable. It is immediately followed by a second analogy to demonstrate the status of pleasure, which is invariably accompanied by evil. To make this concomitant relation explicit, Vidur compares pleasure with honey, pleasure seeker with one who collects honey, and evil with abyss, and says that the pleasure hunter is busy only in seeking honey, unmindful of impending danger of falling into the abyss. In the Mahabharata, Vidur plays his role on three occasions. On second occasion, Vidur plays the role of a counselor. His counseling has moral base. He makes an explicit distinction between two states of mind, those of wise men and ignorant. While Plato speaks of four cardinal virtues, Vidur speaks of six cardinal vices. Greed is one among them. He makes out a sense for wise men by listing the remaining vices: lust, hunger, irrational attachment, arrogance, and jealousy, which he does not possess. There is no need to describe the personality of one who is free from these vices. Dharma, according to Vidur, consists in every man doing his own duty, and this is the cardinal principle of welfare state. Vidur talks of death and the need to accept the same. Death and fear are nearly inseparable. If man does not accept that is inevitable. In this context, Vidur accepts reality, human nature, and maintains that man hardly follows wisdom. Political thought in epics. Bhisma's advice to Dharmarya Dharmarya specifies only the duties and responsibilities of ruler with no mention of the duties of citizen. Against this backdrop, it becomes obvious that in real sense, citizen is the king and ruler in his guardian. Bhisma's lecture not only explicitly mentions king's qualities and duties, but also it is first ever treatise on public administration. King should be proactive, truthful, and straightforward. According to Bhisma, the thesis are the most important quality of king. These he should be compassionate but not too soft. The essence of Rajdharma is safeguarding the interest of citizens. In fact, Bhisma lists 36 qualities in an ideal king which are necessary to follow Rajdharma, without which the citizens do not receive protection from the king. Foreign policy is another aspect of public administration. Foreign policy involves two forces, enemies and friends. The role of friend is not much highlighted, but he emphasizes the king should know how to deal with enemy. Prudence is always the guiding force. Bhishma makes it very clear that war is not the solution, nor did he mean that enemy can be spared. Constant vigil, concealing one's own weakness and proper judgment only can ensure safety and security. All these descriptions apply under normal circumstances, whereas in distress, even enemy should enjoy compassion because a humanitarian treatment may destroy enmity. And ultimately, human outlook scores over other considerations. 18 Puranas. Puranas is a story of old days and is more than a myth and is more than a myth. It is a record of stories of antiquity, having no parallel in Western literatures. These are meant for the celebration of religion, the glorification of saints and kings, and the edification of readers whose faith is to be strengthened. They are a prolix, flowery, repetitive derivative from earlier models with a good deal of borrowing and conflation and lacking even the slender thread of history. Although we cannot date Puranas by its character of repeating the stories of the old days, one can trace their composition from 300 CE to 1000 CE. They speak of ascendancy of this or that main god in the evolving pantheon. They tend to dedicate to that god around whom the old stories are retold. Puranas is devotional material from the Bhakti tradition. The stories about the god who are the object of people's loyalty and practices of various kind appropriate of the worship of those gods. These consist of chronicles and legend and genealogy of kings. They are treatises of history, of cosmology with various symbolical illustrations of philosophical principles and so forth. According to tradition, there are 8 Puranas. These are the scriptures dealing with the worship of a particular aspect of God. They prescribe detailed course of discipline of the worshipper. Each Agama consists of 4 sections. They are philosophy, mental discipline, rules for the construction of temples and images, religious practices. The agamas are divided into three according to the deity that is worshipped. The Vaishnava agamas, also called the Pancharatra and Vaikhanas agamas for Vishnu, he Saiv agamas for Shiv, and Shakta agamas, Tantras for Shakti. Each glorifies its particular deity. People's response to their gods in God is in terms of religious practices of bhakti, prayers, ceremonial hymns, gifts given to Brahmins and gods, vows to service, shraddhas or ritual practices or tirthas. The doctrine of avatar, divine incarnation, is fully developed in epics and the Puranas. The purpose of an avatar is for protection of the virtuous, for destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of dharma, moral order. According to the Puranas, there are 10 avatars of Vishnu: Matsya, fish; Kurma, tortoise; Varaha, boar; Narsimha, the man lion; the Vamana, dwarf; Pa- Parasuram, Rama with X; Ramchandra, hero of Ramayana; Krishna, the god of Bhagwadgita; Balaram, warrior Rama; Kalki, the hero of an white horse, which is who is to come at the end of the Kali Yuga. The gods are stratified for their appear both Vedic and post-Vedic deities together. Of the Vedic gods, Indra, Agni, Som, Vayu and Surya reappear in Puranic lore, but they are no longer central as they were to Vedic ritual, and some of their functions have changed. It is as if they have been demoted in favor of the famous Hindu triad of Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer, who dominate Puranic literature. Each of the three has the goddess as consort. Brahma's wife is Saraswati, patroness of music and learning. Vishnu's wife is Lakshmi, goddess of fortune, sometimes beneficent and sometimes not, and Shiva's wife is Parvati, daughter of Himalaya mountain. Notable exception is found in the Devi Mahatmya section of the Markandeya Puran, in which the ferocious Durga and the Black Kali created spouseless out of the combined energy of the god, became manifest to do combat with demons. Though other minor deities appear, the three major gods play an important role. The divine population includes the host of supernatural beings like Pitras, dead ancestors, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Devas, Asuras, Rakshasas. They are they are the instruments of popular education. Dharma or social duty reflects the same. Hindu law quotes basically Brahmanical and is given in illustrative stories and in lecture form. The Puranas afford us far greater insight into all aspects of phases of Hinduism. In mythology, in ideal worship, its theism and pantheism, its love of God, its philosophy, and its superstitions, its festivals and ceremonies, and its ethics than any other works. Purana words has two slightly differing etymological meaning. Pura, past, atitam, lost, anagatam, about to happen is one meaning. Pura, past, bhavam, happened is another. In terms of structure, Purana consists of five components. They are description of nation or nations and their history, history of creation, history of recreation, description of dynasties, the story of each Manu, Manvantara. First and fourth components do incorporate elements of history. However, there is a vital difference between history and mythology. History follows a certain method and therefore at some point to time and or the other. It is possible to dispute what a historian claims because history tries to gather as many evidences, no facts as possible. Puranas, however, are altogether different. The relevance of evidences is totally aligned to Puranas. It is therefore impossible to refute what Puranas claim, nor can we defend the same. In addition to five components mentioned earlier, many Puranas deal with cosmology. Perhaps it is the only topic common to philosophy and Puranas. Interestingly, one Purana, Vayu Purana, attempts at geography, music, etc. Apart from the neglect of evidence, Puranas suffer from one more defect. All Puranas combine legend related to God and demons, life after death, which disqualify mythology from becoming worthy of serious philosophical study. In defense of Puranas, it can be said that though Puranas are related to mainly theological issues, they include almost all activities of life and hence they ought to occupy an important position in the list of discipline. But this all inclusiveness itself is a serious defect. Bhagavad Gita. In Sanskrit tradition, there are many Gita literature. Uh, One that got popularity as it is attributed to Krishna and formed part of the famous Mahabharata is Bhagavad Gita. The term Bhagavad means Lord, Gita means song, and so the meaning of Bhagavad Gita is literally song of the Lord. This is the literature written in poetic form that must have been compiled around 2000 BCE. In the Battle of Kurukshetra, Lord Krishna urges Arjuna to do his duty, good or evil, without any attachment for the fruit of actions. Niskama karma. Gita is short, beautifully harmonizes the philosophy of action, devotion, and knowledge. Three gunas: sattva, principle of light; rajas, the source of activity; tamas, responsible to resist the action, are explained well. There are two possible approaches to the Gita. One is regarding it as a sacred text in conformity with tradition. Second, regarding it as a philosophical text. The first alternative is relevant to us. The second one is disappointing because we cannot find much philosophy in it. Whatever little philosophy that can be traced in the Gita is of minor importance only. Generally, we expect consistency in any philosophical argument, but this is totally aligned to the Gita. If so, what is the position of the Gita within the framework of philosophy and what are its virtues, if it has any? The three features are prominent in the Gita: knowledge, social obligation, and devotion. The confluence of these principal features constitute what is popularly known as yoga. There is no need to consider its role in life, which the Gita has explained. What is important is its position in philosophy, but there is no reference to its philosophical foundation anywhere in the Gita. For example, consider devotion bhakti. Devotion is sensible only when bhakta is uh, distinct from Paramatma, not otherwise. In other words, the refutation of the Advait is a prerequisite to accept the relevance of bhakti. But nowhere do we find any reference to Dvaita or Advait in the work. On the contrary, the Gita concludes by merging obligation or karma and knowledge in bhakti. It shows that religion receives precedence over philosophy. This becomes a stumbling block in studying the Gita from a philosophical perspective. Idea of God in Gita. In Gita, God is more personal. He is identified with Krishna Dev Raya. He is named as Purushottama. Purushottama means one who is a supreme being and intelligent with the mystical mind. He becomes a ground for mutable and immutable aspect of the universe. That is, he is Purushottama, in whom the whole world is grounded. Everything works by his divine intelligence, and he is the creator of everything. He is the ultimate cause principle of everything, and has power of everything. And so he is both transcendent and immanent. Where- Wherever Dharma is on decline, the Supreme Being Purushottama embodies himself to protect the upright and to punish the wicked and to establish Dharma. Though he is unborn and imperishable Lord of beings, yet comes into the world in his own images to maintain Dharma in the universe. Gita says, I am the upholder of immortal and imperishable, Brahman of absolute bliss. Purushottama is an embodiment of karma actions. He is ceaselessly busy in maintaining the cosmic model. Uh, Avidya should be overcome by the right knowledge. So we should unite our will and intelligence with God without expecting any fruit of our actions. Thus, He becomes the object of faith and devotion, source of mercy and love. The concept of avatar is prevalent even from the time of Vedas. Upanishads seek of uh, Amasavatara, Ansa partial manifestation of God, or avatar is full conscious descent of God, yet into phenomenal world, accepting the condition of becoming. Wherever dharma is on decline, the supreme being Purushottama embodies himself to protect the upright and to punish the wicked and to establish dharma. Though he is unborn and imperishable Lord of beings, yet comes into the world in his own images to maintain dharma in the universe. Thus we find in Gita, God is of love and grace, who evokes faith, love and devotion. Three margas in Gita. Krishna, Janma, Karma, Gyan, and Bhakti are the three paths proposed as spiritual disciplines by Gita for the betterment of one's wealth. Karma Yoga. According to Gita, every individual is expected to be Karma Yogi, ethically and intellectually virtuous. A Karma Yogi is the one in whom there is an absence of pride, conceit, vanity, egoism, and presence of forgiveness, sincerity, purity, steadfastness, self control, renunciation, strong devotion of the Lord, reverence to the Master, and love for the Scripture. So, if one does his duty by his very duty, he becomes Karma Yogin, Niskam Karma. Gyan Yogi, one should be Gyan Yogi, also Gyan of Brahman and Purushottama refers to his wisdom, and so for the Gyan Yogin, this Gyan is an essential quality for his liberation. Bhakti Yoga. It consists on devotion. In this devotion, a devotee should be a sincere and continuous seeker of truth, and so he should try to get a Gyan about try to get the Gyan about the Supreme Being by loving the sacred scriptures. One of the means to do so is sa- Saranagati, which means total self-surrender of oneself to God. One point becomes clear from the Gita: no one can attain moksha if he or she renounces this world. Renouncing the world is tantamount or renouncing obligations. Hence, in defense of the Gita, one assertion can be unhesitatingly made that the Gita does not prioritize spirituality at the expense of worldly life. However, neither the change that it does so, nor the countercharge that it does not, is philosophically insignificant. But this point is mentioned because attainment of moksha in relation to karma has primary importance in the Gita. While jnana stands for realization at highest level, karma assumes the very different meaning. During the Vedic age, karma meant only performing yajna, but in the Gita it has come to mean social obligation. Yoga came to be understood as dedication. Hence, karma yoga may be understood as discharging duty with a sense of commitment. The most important element in the Gita is the doctrine of niskam karma, which consists in discharging obligations in an impersonal manner. This attitude literally devours yogas because one performs it with selfish motive. The Gita, however, never advocated that karma should be renounced. What is clearly asserted is that karma phala should be renounced. It only sidelines personal interest and upholds social interest. Thus, individual becomes the means and society in the end. An impersonal approach to duty does not affect the performer in any manner. Neither success nor failure affect him or her. This attitude is samatva manobhava, equanimity of mind. It is necessary to clarify the relation between the meaning of karma and varna at this stage. Chatur Varna fourfold classification becomes relevant. Translated to ordinary language, it means commitment to profession. Chatur Varna Maya Srishta Good Karma Vibhagsha. It means guna quality and karma profession determine varna. To this statement, we can add another quality determines profession. Commitment to profession is what dharma is. The Gita makes a clear distinction between commitment and interest. Commitment is impersonal, whereas interest is personal. Vested interest is well known, but there is nothing like vested commitment. When vested interest affects the individual, he may resort to prohibited means. But impersonal commitment does not result in this sort of selection. The maxim ends do not justify the means. It is implicit in the Gita. One more aspect remains to be mentioned. There is a mistaken notion that there is hierarchy in profession. It is not the case as far as the Gita is concerned, but there is a distinction between good and bad, or constructive or destructive. It is good to discharge duty which is in conformity with one's own nature, otherwise it is bad. Clearly there is division of labor, and it is in the interest of society that such division is made mandatory. Therefore qualitative distinction is profession is strongly disapproved. Path of bhakti as means to liberation. The term bhakti is defined as devotion or passionate love for divine. Moksha or liberation from rebirth was not in the following of rule, regulation and societal ordering, but it was through simple devotion to the divine. Within the movement at large, useful distinctions have been made by contemporary scholars, being those poets, saints who composed verses extolling God with attributes or form, namely Saguna Bhaktas, or those extolling God without and beyond all attributes or forms, Nirguna. While the differences between these two branches are indeed important, their overarching similarities cannot be minimized. Both focused on singular devotion, mystical love for God, and had a particular focus on a personal relationship with the divine. A clearer expression of bhakti began to be formed during the epic and the Puranic period. Texts such as the Bhagwadgita and the Bhagavata Puran clearly explore bhakti yoga, or the path of devotion as a means to salvation. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna preached the message of devotion to the personal God. Bhakti, bhakti, love of God, leads not only leads the religious man to liberation, for this is the grace God is willing to bestow on all who seek to know Him and love Him, but it is the goal itself, uniting men to God in eternal and dependent state of being. The God of Bhakti is gracious to men and has compassion for all. He is especially benevolent to those who love him. His devotees are dear to him. It is thus man's loving response to this divine graciousness on which he acknowledges himself utterly dependent on his salvation. Bhakti is the very important topic found in the scriptures and with various shades of meaning in different contexts. The word Bhakti is used in the scriptures in two different meanings. Bhakti means devotion towards God. Devotion is love directed towards a higher principle. Reverential love can be defined as devotion. We talk about Matra Bhakti and Pitra Bhakti. In our tradition, we look upon the parents as of worship. Similarly, we talk about Guru Bhakti, Desh Bhakti, and Ishwar Bhakti. Therefore, in general, Bhakti is love towards the higher principle, especially love towards God. Three forms of love are means love and self-love. Scriptures point out that all forms of love that a human being entertains are directed towards only three things. The first one is love of goal, wanting to achieve some end. Secondly, it is because we love them that we want to acquire them. Since the means are useful to accomplish the end, we love the means also. The third object of love is oneself. Everyone loves himself or herself. The scripture point out that there is a gradation in the intensity of these three form of love. Love of the mean is the least in its intensity. Love of the end is medium, and love of oneself is the highest form of love, wherein the love has got the highest intensity. Most of the time, love for people is purely the love for the means to accomplish the end, and often money is the end. Therefore, the love for the end is superior to the love for the means. I love various ends, hoping that they will give me comfort, security, happiness. It is for my benefit, my comfort, my security, my happiness. I love various ends. Three grades of devotion. The scriptures point out that the intensity of love depends upon how you look upon God, because different people see God in different ways. The way you look upon God will determine the intensity of love. Majority of people look upon God only as the means for various worldly ends. As long as you look upon God as a means, that love is called Manda Bhakti, inferior devotion. The next set of people is still rare. They don't look upon God as means for various ends. They are mature enough. Their understanding of God is clearer. They are able to choose God as the end of life. The end of life means the goal of life. They know God represents security. God represents peace. God represents happiness. They know that everyone is seeking security, peace, and happiness alone. Naturally, their love of God is as the end, and therefore it is more intense than the previous one. Therefore, this bhakti is uh, Madhyama Bhakti. Uttama Bhakti is third and rarest form of love, which is the most intense form of love. It is the love in which I look upon God neither as the means nor even as the end. The Lord and the self being identical. God love is equal to self love. Since self love is the most intense love, that form of love is called Uttama Bhakti. For for Manda Bhakti, God is dear. For Madhyama Bhakti, God is dearer, and for the Uttama Bhakti, God is the dearest. Krishna beautifully elaborates this in the 7th and the 12th chapter of the Gita. There are 9 forms of bhakti. First 3 are Manda, Madhyama, and Uttam Bhakti, where in bhakti is the love of God. The next 3 are uh, Kara Rupa, Upasana Rupa, and Jnana Rupa. Bhakti, wherein Bhakti means spiritual discipline. The last there are Eka, Aneka, and Arupa Bhakti, depending upon the understanding of God. Let us sum up. Generally, philosophy is meant by searching for finding out in inquiry into what is truth or reality. Search for meaning has been a human activity from time immemorial. When first human beings started questioning the possible explanations, and the conclusions of their quest for truth became philosophical thoughts. From the primitive to contemporary human being, this quest for truth is continuous. Time and again, human society check with its conclusions and definitions of reality. In the time of contemporary issues and questions, when encountered with irrelevant answers from the previous conceptions, they try for new answers for the new questions, or even for the same old questions. In our present endeavor, we understand that the thoughts of people of that time are ancient. As the quest for truth is an ongoing process, we consider the thought of people at the ancient time are not totally antiquated. If they deserve only to be beautiful antiquities, they would lose the significance and relevance to us today. The philosophical quest and the conclusions of the ancient times are ever fresh in our contemporary period too. They are ancient but never antiquated or outdated. Ancient also brings to our mind the of history concept of history. We fix the period in the past and look into what went on in that period in the minds of our ancestor. In India, we do not have a strict linear understanding of history. Indian history is most shaped by circular notion of history. It is more of chronological than chronological. Therefore, we take care of thoughts being recorded in oral and written form. Often, something is considered to be philosophical only when they are presented in a written form. In India, more than the written forms, ideologies are recorded in various other means of communication, such as oral transmission, art, architectures, dance, song, cultural customs and traditions. The Puranas, Itihasas, and Gita emphasize on the necessity of ethics and advocates deep contemplation on moral virtues and self-control. It deals with cosmic and moral order, maintaining peace, harmony, and order in society and cosmos. In them, epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and aesthetics are intricately interrelated that it is very difficult to understand any of them in isolation. It is cosmic and spiritualistic, synthetic and integral. A clearer expression of Bhakti began to be formed during the epic and the Puranic period. Texts such as the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavad Puran clearly explore Bhakti Yoga and or the path of devotion as a means to salvation. Thank you.